Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me today. If you believe that once our loved ones have passed on, that they're always with us, then today's story will definitely touch your heart. It's called Share My Flowers, written by me, Pelenta Forrest, and here we go. This morning, when Rose woke up, she lied in her bed and stared at the ceiling. She did her best to think and be positive, but she knew today was going to be a rough day. As the tears streamed down her face, she found it hard to believe that it's been an entire year since she laid her mother to rest. She wiped her tears, got down on her knees, and began to pray as she talked to God. Then out loud she said, "I'll be there soon, Mom. I'll see you soon." Rose got herself all cleaned up and started her day. Her first stop was the florist. "I gotta get Mom and her neighbor some flowers," she thought to herself. The florist had a special sale today, so Rose got some extra flowers, and she also picked up a brand new vase for her mom and one for her mom's neighbor. As she put all the different flower arrangements into her car, she saw the groundskeeper pull into the parking lot. "Hello, Mr. Henry. How are you today?" Mr. Henry smiled at Rose as he peeked at all the flowers all lined up in the back seat of her car. "Oh, I'm doing quite well, Rosie, and thank you for asking. You know, there's a young man that visits your mother's neighbor, and he's always pleased and dumbfounded when he sees the fresh flowers that you've laid there." And Rose responded, "Oh, I know, Mr. Henry, but those flowers are often near death by the time I get there, so I just figured that the other lady could use some fresh flowers too. I mean, she's right next to Mother, for crying out loud, and today I bought her the same vase that I bought my mother, so they have matching vases today." Mr. Henry just chuckled. "Well, I'm sure they'll both appreciate it, Rosie, and that young man too." As he walked into the store, he waved and smiled at Rose. "See you later. I have flowers to get also." Rose waves back as she gets into the car and starts to make her way down the street. She turns on the radio, and it's playing one of her mother's favorite songs. As Rose smiles and hums along, she starts to feel very peaceful. Then she hears the sirens. Rose glances up into her rearview mirror and sees a cop. "Ah, crap," she says. "Can't this just be a smooth day? My goodness." The officer motions for her to pull over, so she does. The officer slowly approaches Rose's car. "You all right, ma'am? Where's the fire?" Rose laughs and looks at the officer as she turns to him through the window that she won't roll down. "Very funny, Officer Fake Person. I was not speeding." The officer shows Rose his badge and ID. "It's a good thing you weren't speeding, ma'am." He reaches on top of her car and removes a crate of flowers that Rose didn't realize she left up there. "And I am not a fake person. I am a real cop. And if you had been going any faster, your lovely flowers would have been all over the street." Rose smiles and opens the window, just enough to get the flowers. She'd never seen this cop before, or his unmarked car. So she takes her flowers and says, "Thank you, officer. I'll be on my way." Before Rose can drive away, the officer says, "Well, I was just wondering, where are you off to? That's a lot of flowers that you have there." And Rose politely says, "If you must know, I am dropping them off to some friends. Good day," as she drives away. The officer jokingly and sarcastically yells, "See ya later." Rose yells back, "I doubt it," and honks her horn. When she finally pulls into the parking lot of the cemetery, she unloads the flowers, along with the blanket, her lunchbox, her radio, and her Bible. Today, she is going to stay a while. Mr. Henry is already back. Rose thinks to herself, "He must have driven by while I was distracted with that officer." She waves at him and proceeds to get her area all set up. She spreads down her blanket and she proceeds to turn the radio on low. She reads the 23rd Psalms, and she asks the Lord for extra strength today. Rose takes out the 2 vases. She places one on her mother's grave and the other on the grave next to her. Then she takes the old flowers and tosses them in the brown paper bag that she brought for garbage. She mixes and matches the flowers. She places some in her mother's vase, and she places some in the other vase on the other grave, the one that she calls her mother's neighbor. Mr. Henry is walking and talking in her direction. Rose stops and looks at him confused and says, "Oh, pardon me, Mr. Henry. I didn't catch all of that. What did you say?" Mr. Henry laughs as he takes off his hat, and he points past her, and he says, "Oh, no, Rosie, I was talking to him, that guy." Rose turns around with her flowers in her hand, and what does she see? That cop standing there holding some flowers. Rose is speechless as Mr. Henry continues to talk. "Oh, hey, Rosie, this is Jerome, the young man that I was telling you about." Rose stands up and just looks at him. With a nervous laugh, she says, "This is a little embarrassing." Jerome extends his hand. "Pleased to meet you again, Rose." He looks at Rose, his setup, and he says, "I never would have guessed in a million years. These are your friends? Wow, this is amazing." Rose looks at him and says, "What's so amazing about it? But before she could finish, Mr. Henry cuts her off and says, "I'll tell you what's so amazing about it." He points at her mother's grave and says, "Your mother is laid to rest, right there, Rosie. And the woman next to your mother that you adopted and call your mother's neighbor." Well, before he could finish, Jerome butts in and blurts out, "That's my mother laid to rest next to your mother. I do not believe this is a coincidence." Jerome slowly walks up to his mother's grave, and he sits down the flowers. And he just sits there quietly. And after some time, Rose asks him, is he okay? Well, he looks at her and he says, "You know, before my mother died, she told me that the woman of my dreams would bring her flowers. And I thought that was odd and a little funny, but here we are." And then Rose says, "You know what? My mother also said something odd before she passed. And her exact words were, 'Make sure you share my flowers.'" And before Mr. Henry disappeared, he laughed and said, "I know that I am just the messenger, but I never imagined that today would pan out like this. I do believe God is smiling." Well, I thought that was a beautiful story, and you can take away from this whatever you like. I personally believe that our loved ones are angels that will forever be watching over us until we meet again. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.